The famous painted ladies of San Francisco that were once part of the black community.
I was a singer in a local singing group, opening for Fats Domino and all that.
But to celebrate the most important thing, and that is community. Community coming together.
I was tremendously impacted when I picked up the Jet magazine and saw that mutilated head.
Being a living example of love, how to stand for community, and I'm just honored that we get to stand in your legacy and continue this evening.
As a longtime civil rights activist, having cut my activist teeth on the wake and the fallout of that brutal, inhumane lynching of Emmett Till on August the 28th, 1955. I must share with you that as a child in Mississippi, the same age that Emmett Till was, 14 years old, I was tremendously impacted when I picked up the Jet magazine and saw that mutilated head. And I ran to the office of Mr. Medgar Wiley Evers, the newly appointed field director of the NAACP for the state of Mississippi, and told him how upset I was. Mr. Evers said to me, "Amos, I understand how upset, how angry you are, how disappointed you are, and how hurt you are. But don't just be angry and upset. Let's be smart. Let us organize a youth council of the NAACP so that you and your young friends will learn how to fight this evil of racism and injustice in a peaceful, intelligent, and strategic way." And from that admonition, from that conversation, I got busy, and with the support of Mr. Evers, organized the first youth council of NAACP in the state of Mississippi. And the principles that I learned first was to be governed by the usage of your head and your brain, and not just emote and be visceral, but to plan, to be strategic, to do your homework, even if you are fighting evil, but to fight it in a smart way. And since that day, wherever I have pastored, whether it was in Westchester, Pennsylvania, St. Paul, Minnesota, I have led in an enlightening way, always presenting the facts, in an engaging manner, making sure that the people were engaged, and we sat and we listened to the people to determine what was the best course to take. We've always been about empathy and love, even for our enemies. For it takes more energy to hate, to be emotional and irrational. And that's why I thank God for the principle of nonviolent resistance that I found sharpened when I sat at the feet of my teacher and friend, the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who taught a seminar in social philosophy and nonviolence in 1962. And I was one of the 8 students at Morehouse College who was chosen to be a part of that incredible seminar that was team taught by the late Dr. Samuel Woodrow Williams, pastor of Friendship Baptist Church of Atlanta and taught philosophy at Morehouse, and he was president of the Atlanta branch of the NAACP and the first secretary of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference that was founded in 1957 when the state of Alabama outlawed the NAACP in 1956 after Dr. Martin Luther King led the Montgomery movement. So those are some of the principles that I learned, and I feel that they are eternal principles, verities, and truths that we must be governed by. For if we don't learn how to live together as brothers and sisters and iron out our differences, as Dr. King so eloquently said, we will perish as fools. And I see America moving toward that point right now with this right-wing, reactionary, mean-spirited, irrational, untruthful approach. Not all Republicans, but most Republicans are taking. They will cause this nation to go down and implode. And it has happened before in history. All you have to do is read Gibbon's book, The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire. And Gibbon points out that Rome fell because the Senate, the Roman Senate, was reactionary, corrupt, and not just. And number two, the emperors, the Caesars at the top, were self-serving, lived opulent lifestyles, and were not concerned about the welfare, the common good, the summum bonum, the good of everybody. In particular, the plebeians, who were the marginalized, who were at the bottom of the well. That's the other reason why Rome fell. And then Rome fell because of the invasion of a foreign power. Does that sound familiar? Russians have messed with our elections. China is a great adversary, an autocratic society. I hope, I pray, that there will be a remnant, that there will be a group of conscience, of goodwill, and courage who will get involved now, to save this democracy from imploding. But if we don't get it by 2024, I'm afraid that we will go the way of all democracies. Historian tells us that democratic societies don't last for about 250 years if there is no reform from within. And we are on course. We're on schedule. If America does not stop, look, and listen, and cross over to do the right thing of engaging everybody, that this will be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, and not for an elite oligarchy or just a few folks who are only interested in having power and are not living purposeful lives to be principled also enough to look out for others before being so greedy for one's self-interest. Well, when I came here in 1976, I made the recommendation that Third Baptists would be engaged in a self-study to do projections on the demographics of the city, and to listen to the needs of the people. And back then, I told them that gentrification and this so-called urban renewal would be nothing but black removal. And that's what has happened. Since 1970, we have lost our institutional base in San Francisco because our numbers have been diminished. We used to have between 95 and 100,000 blacks, I repeat, back in 1970. But now, we're down to about 35,000. One report says we have only about 3.9 to 3.4% black population left in San Francisco. And the sad thing is that the median income, per capita income for African Americans is $30,000 a year. But for whites, $110,000. For Asians and Latinos, between 70 to 80,000. So the question becomes, why are we at the bottom of the barrel? I'll tell you. We live in a culture of neglect. The body politic does not show the will to do anything to right the wrongs of urban renewal that was, I repeat, more about black removal. And I feel that black people finally have got to be responsible, to be tough enough to fight peacefully, intelligently, and collectively, to have a sense of somebodyness and work together and never be guilty of being divided, working against each other. We need unity, we need purpose, and we need consistent, intelligent, enlightened leadership to stay in place if we're going to maintain this black population. If we don't, we shall be a people who will experience extinction. All other groups have had their times. And sociologists and psychologists have told us again and again for years that when a social or ethnic group fails to maintain what they say in the Swahili language, Ubuntu, which means because we are, therefore I am. Rugged individualism, that's for privileged folk, rich folk. They can be individualists. But the oppressed and the marginalized must have a sense of unity and togetherness to survive.
Tribal.
Yes.
Got it.
That's it.
Tribal.
That's it. And that's what we need more of in this city and in all urban communities where we have been displaced, dislocated by public policy.